What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actresses walks into what should have been a simple daytime interview, only to face the most humiliating ambush of her career? It took just 27 seconds. 27 seconds of Denise Welch's barbed remarks about age and relevance before Dame Judi Dench realized this wasn't an interview. It was a setup, a trap disguised as a friendly chat. What followed would become one of the most uncomfortable segments ever aired on Loose Women. A moment that peeled back the glossy surface of daytime television and revealed the venom simmering beneath. That morning had started like any other for Dame Judi Dench. At 78, she had done it all. Countless interviews, endless press tours, and a lifetime of grace under pressure. She was there to discuss her new film, expecting warmth, civility, maybe a laugh or two. Instead, she walked into a firing line. As the theme music faded, Denise Welch sat at the head of the panel, lips curled into that sly smirk every Loose Women viewer knew too well. The kind that meant someone was about to get torn apart. Beside her sat Ruth Langsford, Colleen Nolan, and Janet Street Porter, all seemingly unaware of the storm about to hit. "Welcome back to Loose Women," Denise began, her tone sharp, already dripping with challenge. "We're joined today by the legendary Dame Judi Dench. Though I must say, I'm surprised you're still doing the rounds at your age. Most people would have retired by now." Made way for younger talent. The studio fell silent. Even the crew froze. Dame Judi, poised as ever, didn't flinch, though the smallest flicker of disbelief passed over her face. "Well, Denise," she said with quiet dignity, "when you love what you do as deeply as I do, age becomes rather irrelevant. Passion doesn't retire." Ruth shifted in her seat, desperate to steer things back to normal. "Dame Judi, your new film sounds absolutely fascinating." But Denise wasn't finished. She leaned forward, eyes glinting. "Oh, come on, Ruth. How many more Bond films can she possibly squeeze out of that tired old M character? Surely it's time to pass the torch to someone who can actually keep up with the action scenes." Colleen Nolan glanced nervously at Janet Street Porter. Janet avoided eye contact, staring down at her notes. "I think you'll find," Judi replied coolly, "that experience and wisdom are quite valuable in any role." "Experience?" Denise scoffed. "Is that what we're calling it now? Because to me it looks like desperation, clinging to roles that should go to women who haven't already had their time in the spotlight." Ruth tried again, her voice strained. "Denise, perhaps we should focus on Dame Judi's achievements." "No, Ruth," Denise snapped. "I'm tired of everyone tiptoeing around these aging stars who refuse to step aside gracefully. It's embarrassing, frankly." The air in the studio turned ice cold. Dame Judi sat perfectly still, hands folded, expression unreadable. But something behind her eyes shifted. "Embarrassing," she repeated softly, tasting the word. "That's an interesting choice." "It's true, though, isn't it?" Denise pressed. "You're pushing 80, love. Don't you think it's time to let someone else have a go?" Colleen finally spoke. "Denise, I really don't think this is appropriate. Dame Judi deserves our respect." "Oh, here we go." Denise rolled her eyes. The respect card. Just because someone's got a title doesn't mean they're immune to honest conversation. Janet looked up then, frowning. "This isn't honesty, Denise. It's just rude." But Denise had lost control of her own temper. "Rude. I'll tell you what's rude. Clinging to fame long after your prime. Taking roles from younger actresses who actually need the work. That was it." The mask cracked. Dame Judi's voice, when it came, was low and cold. "My best days behind me?" she said. "Tell me, who exactly appointed you the judge of when an artist's time is up?" "Common sense did," Denise fired back. "Something your generation seems to have misplaced." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ruth sat frozen, Colleen pale, Janet speechless. Dame Judi slowly removed her earpiece and placed it on the table. When she looked up again, the warmth that had defined her entire career was gone. Her eyes burned, not with anger, but with something far more unsettling. A calm, regal fury. "In my 60 years in this business," Dame Judi began, her voice low but resonant, a quiet thunder that commanded the room, "I have never been spoken to with such blatant disrespect and ignorance." Denise froze, her confidence faltering. "Now, Dame Judi, I was only trying to have an honest discussion." "Honest?" Judy's tone sharpened, her composure finally breaking through the chill. There was nothing honest about what just happened here. That wasn't a discussion. That was a calculated attempt to humiliate me on live television, and I will not stand for it. Ruth Langsford leaned forward, panic in her voice. "Dame Judi, please. We're so sorry about this. Denise doesn't speak for all of us." But Denise wasn't finished. The faint tremor in her hands was masked by a sneer. "Oh, come on now. Don't get all dramatic on us. This is exactly what I mean. Your generation throws a tantrum whenever someone tells the truth." Dame Judi rose slowly. The scrape of her chair echoed through the silent studio. The air felt electric. She stood tall, the poise of a woman who had commanded both stage and screen for 6 decades. "A tantrum," she repeated softly, each word cutting sharper than the last. "You think this is a tantrum?" She took a single step forward. "Let me tell you something about truth, Denise. The truth is, I've worked harder in 1 week of my career than you've worked in your entire television run." The blood drained from Denise's face. But pride, or foolishness, pushed her on. "That's rich," she snapped, her voice cracking. "Coming from someone who's been coasting on the same few roles for the past 20 years. That was enough. Janet Street Porter slammed a hand on the desk. "Denise, stop. Right now. You're making a complete fool of yourself." "I'm making a fool of myself," Denise shot back, whirling toward her. "I'm the only one brave enough to say what everyone's thinking." "No," Colleen Nolan said firmly, her voice trembling with controlled anger. "You're the only one cruel enough to attack a respected guest for your own entertainment." Dame Judi stepped closer to the table, her gaze locked on Denise. "You want to talk about coasting, do you?" she said quietly. "Then tell me, what have you contributed to the arts? What legacy are you leaving behind? I don't need to justify myself to you," Denise retorted, but her voice wavered. "No," Judi said calmly. "You don't. But you did feel the need to justify attacking me on live television, and you failed spectacularly." Ruth tried again, desperation creeping into her tone. "Ladies, please. We're live on air. Can we just take a breath? Don't you dare try to manage me right now, Ruth," Judi interrupted. Still measured, still controlled. "You've done nothing wrong." "She has." She turned, pointing directly at Denise. "This woman invited me here under false pretenses, then ambushed me the moment the cameras started rolling." Denise's cheeks burned crimson. "Vicious attack? Oh, don't flatter yourself. I was having a conversation about the industry. If you can't handle criticism, maybe you really are too old for this business." An audible gasp rippled through the studio. Janet covered her face. Colleen stared, horrified. Judy's eyes blazed. "Too old, I see. So in your narrow little view, a woman reaches a certain age and should simply disappear? Stop creating. Stop existing in public spaces?" "I didn't say that," Denise muttered weakly. "Oh, but you did." Judy's voice gained momentum, conviction building like a rising tide. "You said it with every word, every sneer. You believe women of my age should step aside, become invisible, so the young can have their turn, as if talent and experience are finite resources." Ruth finally found her voice again. "Denise, this is completely unacceptable. Dame Judi is our guest, and you've been nothing but hostile since the moment she sat down." "Thank you, Ruth," Judi said softly, nodding. "But I can handle this." She turned back to Denise, and her voice hardened once more. You know what's truly embarrassing, Denise? A woman using her platform to tear down other women. A presenter mistaking cruelty for entertainment. Denise tried to recover, forcing a laugh. Oh, please. I was just asking the hard questions other interviewers are too polite to ask. Hard questions? Judi's laugh was icy, humorless. A hard question would be about my craft, my process, my work. What you did was a personal attack wrapped in the thin disguise of journalism. Janet leaned forward, exasperated. This isn't journalism, Denise. This is spite. And it's beneath you. It's beneath this show. Spite. Denise's voice cracked into a near scream. You want to talk about spite? Spite is clinging to roles that should go to actresses half your age because you can't accept that your time is over. The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Dame Judi stood completely still. The silence around her felt monumental. Then she smiled. A small, cold, devastating smile. My time is over? She said softly. No, Denise. My time will be over when I choose it to be over. Not when some failed actress turned daytime provocateur decides it should be. The blow landed. Denise recoiled, eyes wide. Even the audience could feel it. That moment when arrogance finally met its reckoning. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Speechless. Stunned. She hadn't expected Dame Judi to strike back with such precision and force. Sensing the growing tension, Colleen Nolan stepped in, her tone gentle but firm. Dame Judi, we want you to know that Denise's comments are her own. The rest of us have nothing but admiration for your incredible career and your contributions to film and theater. I appreciate that, Colleen, Dame Judi replied warmly. But this isn't about personal opinions. This is about basic respect and decency. Denise, realizing she was losing control of the exchange, made one last desperate attempt to regain her footing. Respect has to be earned, she said sharply. And clinging to past glories doesn't earn you anything but pity. The reaction was instant. Ruth Langsford gasped audibly, while Janet Street Porter shook her head in disbelief. But it was Dame Judi's response that would go down as television legend. She looked at Denise for a long, measured moment. Her expression softened, not into calm, but into something colder, far more dangerous. Contempt. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear even, and utterly devastating. Past glories, she repeated slowly. Let me tell you about past glories, Denise. My past glories include 8 BAFTAs, an Academy Award, and 6 decades of work that has touched millions of lives. I've spent my life creating, mentoring, building something that endures. What exactly are your glories, past or present? Denise's face drained of color. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. My past glories, Dame Judi continued, her voice gathering momentum, include being made a Dame Commander of the British Empire for services to drama. They include bringing stories to life, nurturing young actors, and giving joy to audiences for generations. Tell me, Denise, what have you built? What will people remember about you when you're gone? Ruth Langsford looked at her with admiration. Janet was nodding vigorously. Colleen had tears in her eyes. I've worked on this show for years, Denise stammered, her confidence faltering. Yes, said Dame Judi evenly. You have. And in all those years, have you used your platform to uplift people, to inspire them? Or have you used it to tear others down? Because it makes you feel better about your own failures. The silence was absolute. Denise looked to her co-hosts for support, but found none. Ruth's expression was disappointed. Janet's was disgusted. Colleen's was tinged with pity. You don't know anything about my career, Denise managed weakly. Dame Judi gave a small, cutting laugh. I know enough. In the last 15 minutes, you've shown me exactly who you are. A small, bitter person who mistakes cruelty for honesty and thinks that attacking others will somehow make her bigger. That was when Janet finally snapped. Denise, this is disgraceful. Dame Judi came here as our guest, and you've treated her appallingly. You should be ashamed of yourself." "Don't you start on me too, Janet," Denise snapped, but her tone was drained of conviction. "I'll start on whoever behaves this badly," Janet shot back. "This is the most unprofessional display I've ever seen on live television." Dame Judi reached calmly for her handbag. "You know the saddest part, Denise? You had a chance to have a genuine, meaningful conversation, to hear stories from 6 decades of experience. Instead, you wasted it on pettiness and envy." Ruth rose quickly. "Dame Judi, please don't leave. We can continue the interview properly. Denise, I think you should apologize." "Apologize?" Denise's voice cracked. "For what? For speaking my mind?" Dame Judi turned to her one final time. "No, Denise. Apologize for showing the entire country who you really are, for wasting everyone's time with your bitterness, for proving that some people will use any platform, no matter how small, to spread negativity instead of creating something meaningful." Colleen's voice trembled as she spoke. "Dame Judi is right. This has been completely unacceptable. We invited you here to celebrate her new film, and instead, you launched a personal attack." "It wasn't personal," Denise muttered, but even she didn't sound convinced. "It was nothing but personal," Dame Judi said firmly. "From the moment I sat down, you decided to be hostile. You didn't ask about my work, my craft, my passion. Just your own resentment dressed up as honesty." The studio was silent. Cameras rolled. The legend of Dame Judi Dench's most iconic television moment was born. "You attacked my age, my relevance, my right to continue working," Dame Judi said, her voice steady and low, every word landing with surgical precision. "That's not journalism, Denise. That's just bullying." The word seemed to strike Denise like a physical blow. She froze, then slowly slumped back in her chair, her bravado gone, her shoulders caving inward. For the first time that morning, she looked small, isolated, a lone figure shrinking under the weight of her own choices. Dame Judi adjusted her handbag over her shoulder and turned her gaze directly into the main camera. "To the viewers at home," she said calmly, "I want you to know that this kind of behavior is not representative of the wonderful people I've had the privilege of working with in British television. Most presenters are professional, respectful, and genuinely interested in having meaningful conversations." She turned back toward the panel, her expression softening slightly as her eyes met Ruth, Janet, and Colleen. "Thank you, you three, for trying to maintain some dignity during this debacle. Your efforts to steer the discussion back to civility were appreciated, even if, sadly, unsuccessful." Ruth Langsford rose from her seat, visibly shaken. "Dame Judi," she said earnestly, extending her hand, "I can't apologize enough for what happened here today. This is not how we conduct ourselves on this show, and it's certainly not how we treat our guests." Dame Judi shook her hand graciously. "Thank you, Ruth. I can see you're a true professional. I appreciate that you tried to salvage the situation." Janet Street Porter stood next. Her voice wavered with anger and shame. "Dame Judi, I'm mortified. You handled this with more grace than anyone could have. You shouldn't have had to." "Thank you, Janet," Dame Judi said, giving her a respectful nod. "Your support didn't go unnoticed." Finally, Colleen Nolan stood, wiping tears from her eyes. "I'm so sorry. You came here expecting to talk about your work, and instead, you were subjected to this. It's unforgivable." Dame Judi's expression softened further as she looked at Colleen. "Don't cry, dear. This isn't your fault. You all did your best to steer things back to decency." Meanwhile, Denise sat motionless. Her eyes were downcast, her fingers clenched tightly together on the desk. The energy in her face had drained away entirely. What remained was silence. Heavy, humiliating silence. Dame Judi took one last, measured look around the studio before facing the camera once more. "I've had a wonderful career," she said, her tone calm but resolute. And I intend to continue having one for as long as I'm able. Age is not a barrier to creativity, passion, or contribution. Anyone who suggests otherwise only reveals their own limitations. With that, Dame Judi Dench turned and walked off the set, her posture proud, her composure unbroken. The studio was silent except for the faint hum of the cameras still rolling. Crew members stood frozen. Ruth, Janet, and Colleen exchanged mortified glances, and at the center of it all sat Denise, hollow-eyed, motionless, and utterly defeated. The footage would be replayed endlessly in the days that followed, not as a triumph of confrontation, but as a masterclass in dignity under fire.